Hi everyone, this is KK Downing, formerly of Judas Priest, and you're listening to Backstage Access, where the real show begins. So crank it up as loud as you can. See ya.
Hey, this is Chris with Backstage Access, and we are so happy to have with us today an absolute heavy metal guitar legend, KK Downing.
Hiya, Chris. It's Ken speaking. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Good. Sun's shining. It's a nice day for October.
Beautiful. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
No problem, Chris. It's a pleasure.
So let's talk about the book, Heavy Duty Days and Nights in Judas Priest. When did you first decide that you wanted to do a book, and how did the project kind of come together?
I think I've been asked quite a lot of times, Chris, since my departure from the band.
Sure.
But the years, obviously, it was definitely no. I don't think so. And eventually, 7 or 8 years, I'm thinking, well, you know what? Time's not particularly on anybody's side, so
Right.
I'll just get stuck in and tell the story, really.
Now, working with Mark on the book, how was that experience? Did he kind of help get all these stories out of you?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Obviously, Mark's pretty... old campaign at doing this, so yeah, it was very helpful, really. It was quite an easy thing to do, even though it was quite time consuming.
Right, I imagine. Now, of course, for your whole career with Judas Priest, you're writing songs and music, and so now you're stuck in this thing where you're writing a book, which has to be a different end of the spectrum altogether. So how does it compare? Was it a lot more difficult than writing a song?
No, I think it was kind of it was stressful, but in different ways. I think.
Right.
I think having to continually, I think writing songs in the early days was fun. It was experimental,
Right.
And you didn't take it seriously. But eventually, when the pressure started to come onto you, and you finished a world tour and you knew you got to do another album. That really is quite a lot of pressure, really.
Right.
But with the book, it was just simply really, it was just kind of taking the time out to dig into the memory banks and coming up with things, and often making a decision as to what to say or what not to say, what to tell, what not to tell.
Right.
What had a consequence, what didn't, what would bore people to death, or so basically, I just kind of rattled through it really, and Mark documented it all down. And of course, he's a big music fan. Him and his brother went to concerts or Priest years ago in the 70s and stuff. So, I felt on pretty safe ground with Mark really to decide how to piece it all together and make sure, as I said, the last thing you want to do is people to put it down and not bother reading the
Absolutely. Now, you talk a lot in the book about your childhood, growing up, and the years before Priest. And it's difficult sometimes to look back at the past, but how do you think that it had to have such a big effect on your relationships, both personally and within the band? What was the biggest factor, you think, there?
Yeah, well, I think that it had a it was very positive. I tried to kind of analyse it myself.
Right.
But I don't know, I might be upsetting a few people if I say things like if you're born into a rich family, and you have a racing bike as soon as you're 12 years old,
right?
And you have a car as soon as you're 16 or something, the world's a different place, but I think then you might tend to be more of a person that thinks, well, I want this, and I want it now, and I want it the way that I want it, I don't know. You kind of, we have this thing in England, you know, where say a lot of people get spoilt, you know, because they had everything they wanted at a young age.
Right.
You know, but for me, I think my childhood kind of molded me into the type of person where not to expect anything, and you know, if you get something that's good, it's a big bonus, you know. And I think it taught me to be tolerant and you know, and to be a pretty humble person, really, in so many ways, you know. And I think for that reason, because obviously you form a band with four other guys and you enter a marriage, you know, it's a relationship, you know.
Right.
All relationships get strained, you know. It's some, but you know, if you've got five guys there, there's probably one or two have a really, you know, two or three of the guys might have a bit more laid back, a bit more placid, you know, a bit more tolerance. But other guys, they want to rule the roost and, you know, be at the top of the pecking order, and there's egos and things creeping. So they say the old adage that it takes all sorts. Well, it certainly does, because everybody's different.
Right.
Chris, you know, I mean, everybody's different. So in order to make a band work, I think you have to be, you know, it's like the husband and wife, really. The husband often thinks he rules the roost and makes all the decisions, but really the wife steers him, you know. So there's a lot of that going on as well, really. You know,
right.
Quite a bit of reverse psychology and everything. So, yeah, I think you have to pull all the stops out and do whatever you can, you know, for the most part, to try and make everything work, you know. But there's always an awareness that some guys are having to be more tolerant, you know, than others. They're having to be, you know, bite the tongues a few more times more often, you know. So that's kind of how it goes, you know.
Right.
We don't have to think of the Beatles, you know. It was Lennon and McCartney. You know, they did all majority of the songwriting, got the majority of the so-called limelight, I guess, you know.
Right. Now, during the whole process of writing the book, what was the most difficult thing to kind of delve into?
I think, obviously, the book, I think it was in my mind a little bit, Chris. Obviously, if you're writing a book, I mean, a lot of these experts, like if you go and see a movie, they tend, you know, a good movie tends to incorporate quite a lot of things like humour, you know, some emotion,
Sure.
you know, some excitement, and all of the things. And with the book, you know, I wanted to try and incorporate, you know, just to keep things entertaining, really, along the way. That was kind of the main idea behind everything.
Now, in the book, you kind of go into, you know, Rob leaving the band, but prior to that, you know, you said that you had thoughts about quitting the band, but then you didn't because Rob left. So at that point, did it ever cross your mind to just say, let's call it quits now? And what kind of changed your mind to keep going after Rob left for a while?
Well, Rob left kind of circa 1990, I think, and at that time, Glenn was wanting to do a solo project, and he actually went ahead and played with other musicians and did a couple of albums. That took a fair few years, really, Chris, you know, before we really got into looking for a replacement for Rob, because it kind of seemed to make sense to kind of let the dust settle and see if Rob would come back, you know, give it some time. I think I was fine with that because I was kind of making my own minds up and everything, you know.
Right.
And then, obviously, like a lot of things, you know, a lot of musicians make, you know, spontaneous decisions to do this or not to do that. I mean, let's face it, musicians are always falling out, having fights.
Right.
Coming back, you know. Say, you know, one band I really like, Dokken, they got back in the last couple of years, after 20 years, you know, they're playing together again. So it's amazing what time does, isn't it, really? It's a great healer. And, you know, people can change their minds because things change, circumstances change. So I think that's kind of what happened. I think the reason I decided to continue was quite a bit of time had passed. Because obviously Rob wasn't coming back. We did become aware of Ripper, Tim Owens obviously was a great singer. And I think some of it, can I dare say as well, is like, okay, we'll show Rob type of thing,
Right.
Because Rob had made a few comments like Priest weren't heavy enough and stuff like that, and I'm thinking, well, hopefully we can go on and be successful. And got to be honest, really, we're kind of hoping that Rob would things for him would fall away and it would fall a bit flat. And that's kind of what happened in the end, really, after about, what was it, 14 years Rob was gone, something like that.
Right. Yeah, so a lot can happen in time. Are you working on any music now? Do you have any solo projects of your own that you're trying to get done?
I'm doing stuff all the time. In fact, Ripper he's been emailing the last couple of days. He's on tour in Europe with the Three Tremors,
okay.
Which I've only just really heard of. So I don't know whether he might stop over here on the way back just to have a few beers and stuff. Hopefully he will. But I'm always talking to people, doing things. I'm involved all the time, really, with the music industry in one way or another. I run my own pretty prolific website out of Finland, kkdowning.net. That's like a big fanzine. It's not all about me. That keeps me pretty busy. For now, I'm doing book signings and all that stuff. But I do play on other people's records. I get lots of requests. And but the winter will be closing in shortly here in the UK, and I think that I'm going to be shutting myself in my music room and see what comes out of it next spring, I think, Chris.
Nice. What about the possibility of you ever getting back with the band? Maybe even just like a one-off date or something like that. Is that something that you would consider doing at this point, or are you done?
Well, yeah, you've got to say in the music industry, never say never.
Right.
So it's all a question of, lots of times, how you're being asked and under what circumstances you're being asked.
Right.
It's not just a question of somebody picking up the phone and saying, "Oh, okay, Gabe, do you want to do that? Do you feel like doing this? We'd really like to, have you back with us, just for this special moment." And then you start thinking about it, because if we did that, then we could do this. And it's all about how you're asked, But if somebody picks up the phone up and says, a couple of people from the record company have asked, if you'd do this with us, it's a different thing, So that's the way we are as humans. I mean, probably not everybody's maybe as sensitive as me, but it's all in the asking, isn't it? I mean, I've had a couple of relationships myself, in my life, and the ladies have often said to me, the problem is not with what you say, it's how you say it, and I have to take that on board. Do you know what I mean? I have to think, what do they mean? I'm asking a question, but there is a way that you put it over, isn't it? It's how you act, the tone of voice and the right time and all of that.
Right. So if the planets align and everything works out perfectly, maybe.
And maybe I could have said, would you mind doing this? Not just saying, can you do that? Or that needs doing,
Right.
Hey, sweetheart, do you think you could do this for me, please? This is a massive difference. Especially with the ladies, timing is critical. Sometimes you could say it like that, other times. That's what confuses us as men. I'm diversifying now a little bit, I say something the one day and it's okay, it flies. And I say it's exactly the same way the next day and it's all hell breaks loose. But I guess that's just me being let off with it the first time, but the ladies come down, if I do So, but anyway, go ahead, Chris. I'm getting running away.
No problem at all. So maybe in the future we might see you back for a special occasion or something, but the timing and the circumstances just have to be quite right.
Well, I think it's the fact that obviously the ball's not exactly in my court. It's in
Right.
in the band camp just to say that, this is coming up. I mean, for example, getting inducted to the Hall of Fame. Well, you don't get those things happen, more than once in a lifetime. Probably if you live 10 lifetimes, it would maybe only happen, it's only going to happen once. So some things, you probably couldn't say no to. Having said what I said, whichever way it was to, just to be a part of that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. I love the book. I'm I guess, a nosy person, so it always interests me to read about people's lives and what they had going on. And we do appreciate you taking the time to share that with us today.
No problem, Chris. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.